Uprisings all over the country, and maybe there will be.
People need to start taking to the streets. This is a dictator.
Enemies of the state.
Show me where it says that protests are supposed to be polite and peaceful.
Hey, welcome everybody to another episode of the Rebel Alliance podcast. I'm your host, Aaron, and today is episode 86. We are moving right along in all these episodes. So a little late today. I had planned this for 2 o'clock. We're only about 26 minutes late, but just trying to get things done and on time sometimes just doesn't make it easy. I've got phone calls and stuff that I'm doing, consulting and what have you. But that being said, I got some really good news today, and we're going to talk a little bit about, what happens when cell service stops working, because that's been in the news lately. And I really didn't want to just jump on the bandwagon like everybody else about this whole cell phone outage and stuff like that. So, let's take care of the housekeeping and we can get right into this. So first and foremost, I need to say thank you to listener John, who reached out before we even get into the housekeeping bit. John reached out and just went on, watched some of the videos, listens to the podcast, and found my number, gave me a call and said, "Hey, dude, you've been having some issues with your website, your WordPress stuff. I might be able to help you out. I'm kind of a tech geek." And I was like, "Okay. I am going to trust you. I have never met you before, but it's all my login information for my site." And this guy pulled a Hail Mary at the last second. I don't know how he did it. He was able to unpack all my backups, get everything working, but East Coast PMA is back up and running. So there's a lot of updates I have to do to the site and stuff, with the plugins, and then some information to get on there and stuff like that. But thank you, John. I don't know if you're listening today or you're listening to this later, but you might have to be my tech guy from here on forward, because you were able to do this, which was taking me weeks. You were able to do it in just a few hours. So thank you very much. I'm sure all of us that use this website and go here for information are really going to enjoy the fact that it is back up and running properly. So that being said, as always, anything you hear on here is not constitute as tax or legal advice. It's just my thoughts on the topic at hand, and that being association. And today we're talking about survival without cell phone service, essential tips for when the phone goes dark. And that just recently happened, and we'll talk about this a little bit more. But before that, as always, if you are looking for more information, you can now go over to East Coast PMA for more content. You can also go over and get your DIY templates. And there are also ways that you can go there and schedule times to have either a 30 or 60-minute meeting with me, where we can discuss your needs for an association and if that's the right direction to go in. So that being said, also, as always, I got to plug the ladies over at the PMA Manifesto. So if you're looking for more content there, you can also go over there and get the DIY templates. Also, they're also on that website, and you can sign up for the newsletter to let you know when the newsletter as to when our next monthly meeting is going to be. You can jump on with us. We use the app called Meetin. I guess it's a little bit more secure. And then we, open the floor up to all of you that are on the call to get your questions answered about association. So those are two of the resources out there for you. Also at East Coast PMA, there's some links on the left hand or right hand side and across the top banner. If you'd like to support this podcast in any way, shape, or form, you can use those links on there, whether it's home essential services. Maybe you want to sign up for Dr. Graves' How to Win in Court Without an Attorney course, which is really good. I think everybody should take that, because the stuff that's taught there should be taught at schools in general, just so we all know how to hold bad actors accountable. And then there's also links for Liberty Dollar if you want to get signed up with them over there. So that being said, the last thing is we're going to play a little we're going to hear a little bit from the folks over at Start9 and talk about their Embassy system. They have a new video out. I took the audio for it to put it on here for you. You can always go to YouTube or their main website to see the video. But I love my Start9 system. Like I've said, I've had it for about 2 years now. And it's amazing how much more information you get when you're not being filtered through Google and all these other platforms, when you've got your own direct connection, using your own server and being able to access your data from anywhere, and also being able to set up end-to-end JSON-born type encryption, text messages with your association or your friends. But enough of me. Let's hear the fellows over at Start9.
We all save our data, but where is it saved? In the cloud, which is actually this building in one of these computers with millions of others. This is called a honeypot, a single place full of data worth a hacker's time to steal. But instead, if you saved your data on your own computer at home, you wouldn't be worth the attack. Saving your own data is easy. Simply plug in a Start9 device and start saving all your own data today. So, will you stay in the honeypot? Or will you take control of your data? Start now. Start9.
All right. Now, as you see on the screen here, or if you're listening, if you use the code Rebel Alliance at checkout, you get 9% off. And then there are ways to tie that in with the Fold card and buy gift cards for Start9. I think it works out to being over 10% or over 15% off, something like that. Wish I knew about that when I bought mine, but hey, needless to say, I got one and I'm happy with it. So I'm going to turn the chats on here. Feel free to let me know where you're watching from, listening from, if you have questions about associations or what we're talking about. And I promise you, as always, I will tie this all into associations by the time we are done and try to do that all under 45 minutes. Now, the other day, a lot of people woke up, no cell phone service, SOS on their cell phones. And it was just like in one or two spots, it was nationwide. Like it was every cell service everywhere. I don't think anybody, I didn't necessarily notice anything on my phone, and I use T-Mobile. I didn't notice anything on my Google phone either. I forgot to check that. But that being said, for my area, it didn't seem to interfere with us at all. But I had other friends within the state that had been interfered with the outage, and it was all over the news and all over the place. And it was everything from, we don't know what it is, to cyber attacks, and the Homeland Security and the FBI is looking into it. So that makes me kind of wonder a little bit whether it was a cyber attack of some sort. And then others are talking about EMPs and everything like that. And I really didn't want to jump on here with all of the what ifs, I hate using the word conspiracy because a lot of those things have come true lately, but the conspiracies of why the system went down. And I guess the only thing I will tie into it is that Obama movie that came out a few months ago. That's how everything started, was disruption of the cell service. So whether this was a test of some sort just to see how we would react or what the capability of their technology was or is, then maybe that's what it was, or maybe it was just a fluke thing where somebody spilt their coffee on one of the servers and it just took everything out, or maybe somebody uploaded some criminal type code or mischief type code. So you can definitely go online if you jump on onto your Brave browser or whatever it is that you're using, and you do some searching. You'll see that everybody from CNN to Newsmax to Fox Business News and everybody in between, AP News, was talking about this outage. So that made me get thinking. I mean, how many of you actually experienced this, and how crippling was it for you? Or how, maybe it wasn't like a complete natural disaster, but it was like, hey, I woke up and now I don't have a cell phone. I can't communicate with anybody. I don't have none of us have landlines anymore in your home. And if you do, God bless you, keep it, because that's the one thing that'll usually never go down. I mean, I have a house phone, but it's a voice over IP. So the internet goes out, the thing's a paperweight, right? So I think for some people that was kind of like, that may not be in this circle of preparedness or freedom minded or self-reliance or self-custody or anything like that, where all of a sudden they're like, holy crap, I just woke up and now I have no cell phone service. What do I do? How do I communicate with each other, with other people? Or what if you have a kid that's out driving and, granted it happened, I think like 4 a.m, but what if it happened in the middle of the day and your kid's out driving somewhere and there's some type of disaster, or the cell service goes down in the grid and then you need to get a hold of them? How's that going to all play out? So there were some things that I looked at and I said, okay, if this, is me and my family or my association that I'm with, or, those people that I interact with, what are some of the things that we can do to kind of alleviate some of the stresses that would come up during this? So, and I've got some resources for you all, as always, that I think you might find interesting. So, again, basically, as it said in a little blurb here, in today's digital age, we are heavily reliant on our cell phones for communication, navigation, and assessing information. However, when faced with a situation where cell service is unavailable, whether due to a natural disaster, network outage, or remote location, it is crucial to have alternative strategies in place to ensure your safety and well-being. And that's kind of what we're going to talk about today. So the first thing on the list I have here is a communication kit. And this is going to be something that you could keep in your vehicle, you could keep in your home. It's just one of those things. And when I talk about communication, I'm not talking just cell phone service. I'm talking other alternative means of communication. A mirror where you can send a reflective reflect the sun off of, so somebody can see your location if you're in the woods or something like that. So um, the first thing is I got here is the preparing an emergency communication kit. And there's some things that you want to keep in mind when you're putting this together, because this could be used during emergencies, disasters. Communication lines may have been dropped, making it difficult to reach loved ones, or maybe you have a real bad storm coming through and then stuff's going down. So some of the essentials that I put in this kit and stuff that we use in the house ourselves is kind of like the essential list. And this is by no means a complete list. You can always add more to this or take away if you wanted to. It's just kind of like, hey, this is, my idea of a solution for when the grid goes down again. And, we saw, some attacks in some power attacks, grid attacks in New York not too long ago. We had this grid go down. We've got movies coming out about it. Like, it's all right there in front of our face. So why not take the time and prepare? So you want to have battery powered radios. I've shown the ones on here before. You can find them now on the website under the I think it's the essentials page or something like that. I forgot what it's called, but there's some things in there that I think are good for those that are getting started in preparedness or in that preparedness lifestyle. And just having those battery operated or those hand wound rechargeable weather radios, so you can listen to NOAA if you need to get the weather. You can listen to any type of emergency broadcast or anything like that on there, because information is going to be the most important thing, is knowing what's going on. And then you'll be able to get updates and stuff like that. We're going to talk about this a little bit later on, but handheld two-way radios, whether you're using a Bowman or something else, a CB in your vehicle, maybe you have a base station in your house. So if you have family out and you've got a spot where you can put up a high antenna, you might have the capability of reaching them, at least if they're in and around town. Now if you are in depending on the situation is, a whistle always comes in handy for things, for signaling, let people know where you are, even in, hours of darkness. Flashlight, that being said, having a flashlight is definitely important. So if this stuff happens in the middle of the night and you're on your way home from somewhere, or you're out at the grocery store and it's 8 o'clock at night and now cell phone service goes out, or maybe there's a grid issue, you want to have that light to be able to find your way back. And then I know probably not a lot of people have these. I still keep these in my truck, but paper maps. And then, your area, your state, and then maybe the neighboring states. I've got a couple, I think they're AAA maps, and, I got some bigger ones and smaller ones. And then that way there, you can figure out routes to get where you need to go in case of any type of emergency or a road blockage or something like that. And then the other thing that I think we've talked about before here is having, like a binder or something of, important information. So if you have to meet family somewhere else, like maybe you're all out, you have these binders, that, okay, I can meet you here and I've got this information. I got, our rally points, as we used to call them in the military. I'm sure they still call those that, but having rally points or rally points en route, that sort of thing. So you want to have a list of emergency contacts. So, if your phone goes down, and I'd be the first one to tell you, I'm terrible with this. Like, I don't even know my own kid's cell phone number. I just click the thing and it calls it, or I push the button in my truck and it calls. I know Alyssa's number, my wife and mine, and that's about it, which is pretty sad. I remember back in the day, like I can still remember my house I grew up in, my phone number, and my grandparents' phone number, but I don't know my kids because everything is just at the tip of our fingers. But if your phone is off and it's not working, you can't get the data out of it, or whatever the issue is, you want to make sure you have, contact information for family members, friends. Local emergency numbers might be another good thing, and the medical providers, that type of stuff. So if you need that information, you have it on hand. And that's where that binder kind of comes into play, where you're putting all this stuff in there. So that way there, it's just grab and go, or it's already in the vehicle, that sort of thing. And then you want to make sure you're keeping the kit readily accessible. So, I've got stuff that I keep in my vehicle, it's stuff in the house. I'm in the process now that we have another driver in the family, getting stuff ready for him. Whether he keeps it in his truck or not is going to be completely up to him. But hopefully, he does that. You want to make sure that you put it in some type of waterproof container or some type of waterproof bag, maybe putting it in even a Faraday bag, where if there is an EMP, hopefully that saves anything that's in there, like if you have radios or Bowfangs in there, stuff like that, where it doesn't cook them. You want to make sure that if you have it in your vehicle, it's in the same spot for everybody's vehicle, whether it's behind the the driver's seat, or maybe you have a bench seat that picks up, but you want to have them all kind of in the same spot. So no matter what vehicle you're in, everybody knows that this is where the emergency kit is. You want to check this and all your other supplies and prepping stuff regularly, making sure that you're replenishing stuff, cycling through your foods, that sort of thing. Think of like the grocery store, take from the front, stock from the back, and then constantly going through your supplies and that sort of thing. So that being said, it's kind of what I kind of have just in like the basic bag. I love, I like the Bowfangs. I have them. They're fairly inexpensive. They don't necessarily always have the great reach. I think my CB probably reaches a little bit farther. But again, it's having all those redundant systems in place. If anybody has been in this type of self-sustaining prepperish lifestyle, you always have redundancy in things. You don't have just one, you have two or three or something, or four. That way there, if something breaks, which it always will, Murphy's Law will kick in, you have something else to then utilize that if it goes down. So like if I have this pen here and the one thing that my union gave me with my job, that's great, that in a calendar, the pen breaks, I have three or four more that I need, that I can have access to if I need to continue writing stuff or taking down notes or what have you. So you want to constantly replenish stuff, ensure your kits are always ready for use during emergencies. And like I said earlier, whether it's in your house or in your vehicle, it's always stored in the same spot so everybody in the family knows where it's at. And again, you can add or take away to this or anything else that you want to it. So exploring alternative communication methods. So we have, and there's one here that doing this, like putting this together, I didn't even know existed. And that just goes to show you that every time I do this stuff, I learn something. So hopefully you're learning something. And if you are, let me know in the comments, or if you think I'm just, wasting your time, let me know that too. I'd be more than happy to entertain any of that stuff. I always like it when there's comments and we get to talk with each other. So two-way radios provide direct communication between users with a certain range, make them ideal for coordinating with family members, teammates, if you have, or I should say, I probably should have put your association, a little bit of my prior military life coming back there for a second. So this is also stuff that you can carry over into your associations. I always try to bring it back to the association and building your communities or whatever it is that you're looking to do with your associations. And if you're like us with Liberty House, we're more local, we're community based, we depend on each other. So having those ways of communicating with your members should, cell service goes down and stuff like that. One thing outside of the two-way radios, again, I said like the CBs, but you can also have satellite phones. Now, I don't have a sat phone. I had used one overseas in Afghanistan to make phone calls here and there. Or we used to get Roshan minutes and slap them into an old BlackBerry and then be able to make phone calls back. But that being said, you can buy sat phones or satellite phones. They aren't they're more expensive, I think, than, cell phones have gotten pretty expensive. But they're not like, I think you have to continuously pay for the minutes. I don't have one personally. It's one of those things where like, I really want to get it, but I say, hey, there's other things I could be spending the money on right now, like building a larger chicken coop and that sort of thing, getting things set up around the homestead, so it's one of those things. If you can get one, great. They'll work wherever you are, as long as you can see the sky. They won't work inside a building or anything like that because they're satellites. So you need to be outside underneath the stars, so to speak, and then access them that way, the communication that way. So that might be something you would be interested in. It's one of those things on my list that I still haven't checked off yet. The next thing, and this is where I got to move my screen around a little bit because this I did not realize was a thing. Let's see. Offline messaging apps. Some messaging apps offer offline functionality, allowing you to send and receive messages without internet connection. So I'm going to put this website in the chat for all of you that are watching and listening. And I think you guys can see the chats after the fact, I believe. So this is one website that I came across that I thought was very interesting. Yeah, that's it. And I didn't even know this was a thing where you can have these apps. So there's Briar, there's Fire Chat, and basically, I guess the way they work is it's not Bluetooth connectivity. Let's see if I can find it here. Let's see, send and receive. So this Briar one, you can start off with a list. Here is Briar. It's suitable for Android users, makes and make sure that they can send and receive messages without needing data or internet connection. It's one of the safest, and if you want to keep your connections private. And from my understanding, it works off of uh, it works up to like 200 feet. It's like a peer-to-peer messaging. I don't know enough about it because, like I said, I didn't even know these existed. So I am going to download the Briar app and just try it out with the wife and kids and maybe some friends to see how well it works. If like the phone's in like airplane mode or something like that, but I found it very interesting that you can send stuff. Now, if you still have Wi-Fi and the cell system goes down, then you can use like Telegram or Signal, something like that. If you're running your own matrix through your Start9, you could message that way. That's where the end-to-end encryption stuff starts coming in. But I just thought that was very interesting. I didn't even know that was something that exists today in this day and age. But I guess you kind of always learn something. One thing when you're talking about other forms of communication, you want to make sure that you are familiarizing yourself with the operations of how it works, whether it's a CB, it's a handheld radio, these apps on your phone. You want to make sure that you know how they work, use them beforehand, just like people that, they go out and buy the Patriot, whatever, storable food for 50,000 years and they buy a whole bunch of it and they've never cracked one open to see what it's like, the consistency, how to cook it until the stuff hits the fan. And now they're like, oh, I have no idea how to use this or how to cook it. So now I have to figure it out on the fly. Like, don't do that. Open stuff up, learn how it works beforehand. Same thing with communication. And again, always teach, everybody in your group and in your family. That way there, even if, like we have my youngest is 8. She should know how to work some of this stuff. I mean, she can work an iPad like nobody's business. So she should learn how to do this stuff too. Same thing like that. You always want to be teaching everybody else so they all learn how it all works. You also want to test the ranges of this stuff. Like I was in one town, Vernon, at our last place, and I was able to communicate with somebody a couple towns over because I was up on a hill with my CB, and I think they had a base station in their house. So they were able to pick me up, and I was able to cut through some other chatter, and I don't have anything tweaked or overpowered with my CB. It's just straight out of the box. So, I was like, okay, I can reach somebody in Tallinn. Now my goal was, okay, can I reach one of our members in Coventry, which is a little bit closer depending on, when you're looking at a map, depending on where you're located. So it's understanding how far these things go and what their range limits are and, that sort of thing, or how you can boost it by maybe putting an antenna at the top of your house or that sort of thing. Same thing with like the satellite phones. If you're in different terrain, you want to see how that stuff works. So make sure you test them. Now, if you're using anything that needs to charge the batteries, make sure you have some kind of battery bank where you can charge stuff too if there is no power, that sort of thing. So the other thing that I wanted to talk about real quickly here, I'm just going to see here. I'm not going to get into all this other stuff. I had put way too much in for today's video. I started going off the rails here and talking about writing down notes for establishing communication protocols and developing survival skills. And I just did too much. So we'll get into navigation, which is a perishable skill for any of you that have been in the military and had to learn how to read a map and do a 6 or 8 digit grid coordinates, and then had to do resections or anything. I haven't done it in so long, I can't remember some of the terminology, but have a topographical map, if I can say that 5 times fast, and be able to say, okay, here's 2 node points, and then find where you are on the map. Not that you may not need this necessarily if the cell phone service goes down, but how to read a regular map from AAA to get from point A to point B and find alternate routes. That's very important because most of us are just punching an address in our cell phone and Waze or Google Maps or whatever it is that you're using and say, okay, take me there. So you got to know how this stuff works. And like I just proved, it's a perishable skill if you don't use it. Like I probably couldn't do an 8 grid coordinate if I had to right now, but maybe, I don't know. It's been a long time. So you want to know how to navigate without a GPS. So using map and compass, that's another big thing. One thing we had to do in the military is not only learn how to use a compass and use it during the day and at night and read a map and, do land nav courses to get from point A to point B, but you also had to know how far you were walking. We did that with a pace count. And so we would mark off a certain designated distance. We would count every time our right leg hit the ground. And then from point A to point B on a flat land, that's how many, how many yards or how many meters you went. And then you could use that while you're in the woods or wherever you're walking through, whatever valley, or, if you're doing desert warfare training or what have you, you knew, okay, I should be roughly this close to my target based on my pace count, and you have to adjust it for hills and that sort of thing. So you got to know how to use a map and compass and learn how to read, them properly so you can get to point A to point B. Identifying landmarks, if you have certain landmarks in your area, make sure you identify those, and other family members know, like, we have a place in town called the Four Corners. Everybody knows what the Four Corners is. So, hey, I'm 100 yards from the Four Corners. I will be, at your location in about 5 minutes. They know exactly where you are. And then, well, I've already kind of touched on this, but practicing, navigation. Like, so my son, who just started driving, he wasn't allowed to use GPS. He had to get from point A to point B. So my practice wife still lives in Enfield, and that's where he is with his mom. And then, so he had to drive from Enfield to Mansfield, and he had to do it without a GPS. And he remembered, he had to like look it up and look at things, but he was able to get from point A to point B. And that's something that I think a lot of us don't do anymore. Like, I mean, I'm always putting stuff in the ways just because I want to see if there's any road pirates, set up speed traps so I don't get nailed and have to pay a fine. So, maybe that's something that you want to do, is start getting used to driving without any type of navigation, whether it's in your vehicle or your cell phone or a Garmin, if people even use those anymore. Another thing is you want to have importance in planning your routes. So if you are, let's say, you have to go somewhere, and maybe the communication's down, and that, hey, based on what you set up for either your community, for everybody to rally together to find out who needs what, or maybe it's a family member, if you're out, you need to meet to this point, you have to know your routes in advance. You can get into crazy things, as like phase lines, and we use those in the militaries to know where you were in your route. So phase line 1, 2, 3, that sort of thing. You also want to have different, consider different factors. Maybe you live in an area where it's really hilly and it's wintertime. What are the conditions going to be like? How much harder is it going to be to get there? Or maybe you have to change route and go somewhere else. And then, as always, like I've said before, you want to have different routes to different locations wherever you're going. So like I might go to work in one way and come back a different way, and then reverse that. But you want to make sure that you have multiple routes and for your destinations and alternative meeting points in case your primary spot gets blocked, like we've talked about before on here. And then yeah, so all right, so I'm gonna just kind of read through this here, because this is establishing communication protocols. Communication protocols ensure clarity and effective efficiency in coordinating with family members, friends, and travel companions during emergencies. I kind of try to tie everything into this. Having predefined protocols reduce confusion and facilitate quick decision making in high stress situations. Tips for establishing protocols: a designated primary point of contact for each group or family. So in the military, what we had is a recall roster, or it's almost like a phone tree. So the lowest guy, you have your commander, and then you have, for us in the Air Force, we had our sergeants or our shift commanders, and then if something was going on, that information would get pushed out, and then it would go to the squad leaders. The squad leaders would then tell the fire team leaders. The fire team leaders would then tell their members, and then everybody would call back or confirm notification, and then everybody would report back that everybody's been notified on whatever the situation is. Maybe it was a recall because something happened, that sort of thing. So like we've had issues when we were overseas, there was attacks, rockets, what have you, and they issued a mandatory recall of all security forces members. So we all had to report back to work, whether you just got off shift or not. So it's having that primary contact. And the same thing if you have an association. This is very important. Like, who am I going to call? Like, okay, so I don't think you need to go to the extent, unless you wanted to, of setting up squads within your association, but you want to have some type of phone tree list where this person calls this one calls that one, and then each person calls back to report to, maybe it's the president of the association, or maybe it's the vice president or treasurer or whoever. Maybe you designate somebody as the person that takes in all the information and says, hey, we've got a hold of all of our members. Everybody's good. Nobody has any major catastrophic issues right now. Maybe it's a big storm and you're worried about trees falling through houses, that sort of thing. So you also want to establish predetermined meeting points and times for those meetings in case of there's any type of separation. Share essential information such as, any medical issues that might happen, if there's anybody that is unable to meet. And I'm speaking more of like if your association maybe have a common rally point, and the Smiths can't get out of their house because a tree fell across their driveway and their chainsaw is not starting. Okay, well, what do we need to do to get over there to make sure they're safe and to get them with the rest of the community? Because maybe we're all going to house up in one spot because somebody's got the room or a barn or what have you. So those are just kind of some of the things you want to keep in mind. So hopefully this wasn't too boring. I really was trying not to do too much super doom and gloom with all this stuff in the news, and because part of me really wanted to feed into a lot of this whole EMP, grid going down, cyber attack, taking out the cell phone service, just like we saw in The World Left Behind, that movie done by Barack and Big Mike. And it's just one of those things where it's like, oh man, here it comes, and then it's like, you see all the memes of like, hey, if you're a prepper, or, you're a conspiracy person, this is what, you've been waiting for. But I think it's a really good chance for us to learn as a group and a community, or even with your own association, that, hey, listen, if the phone goes down, that hasn't happened in a while. How am I going to handle this? And I'm sure some of us kind of felt like, what the hell do I do now? Like, I have no idea what to do. Hopefully that's not anybody here that's listening, but maybe somebody catches this audio or video later on as they're perusing through some of the other content I put out. But, it's one of those things where, hey, if this did affect you, all right, now we've got a chance to say, okay, this was kind of a pucker factor. It was real minor, because most of us were home or what have you, and with our friends and family or whatnot. And okay, so there's a little bit of a pucker factor here. Now, what are we going to do to correct that? And what are some of the things we can put in place to kind of make things feel a little bit better should this happen again? And then alleviate the stress, because as you get put into a stressful situation, you lose a lot of your fine motor skills. Talk to anybody that's in the military, anybody that's gone through any SWAT school or anything like that. You start to lose those fine motor skills. That's why they focus so much on gross motor skills, so you can still fight and get through whatever is stressing you out at that point in time, whether it's being shot at, rockets, what have you, or maybe you're just in a stressful situation like, okay, I need to get home. This road's blocked. How do I get there? Now, if you have alternate routes set up, you're not going to be stressed out. You're going to go, I got to go to my manual or my book, pull this out. Okay, I got to go A, B, or C. I'm going to try B. Let's see where that gets me. So it's all about planning. And it's not that stuff you see on TV or the zombie apocalypse, as cool as that would be probably. It's real life stuff and how to keep ourselves and our community safe. Community, I mean our associations. And if you have a community within your community, then that too. I don't know if that made sense, but these are just some of the thoughts I had when I saw all this stuff come out in the news. It didn't affect me personally. We didn't lose our cell service as far as I know, and I really wish I would have checked my Google phone. But anyways, that's what I got for today. Hopefully you guys found this informational, helpful in some way, shape, or form. If you didn't, let me know too. And as always, please leave your comments and questions on the YouTube or Rumble channel, or in either of the Facebook groups, either East Coast PMA or the PMA Manifesto. And then also all the websites are back up. So again, thank you, John, for helping me out with East Coast PMA. And I do appreciate seeing everybody today. And I will see you. Ooh, today is Friday, isn't it? Holy mackerel, this week went by fast. So there is a good chance I may not do anything tomorrow, but I might make up for missing stuff this past week. Sunday, I've got family stuff going on this weekend, but maybe I can get something in, a quick little report or what have you. But as always, feel free to reach out to me, get on the Telegram group, get in the Facebook groups, get over to East Coast PMA, the PMA Manifesto, jump on the newsletters so you're notified of when the monthly call comes out. And thank you all for listening and watching. I hope you have a good and safe weekend. And remember, if you're like me, you're not 18 anymore, or 21, I should say. So don't drink too much, because it's going to hurt the next day, as it always does. But that being said, thanks for watching. Have a good weekend, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.
There aren't uprisings all over the country. Maybe there will be.
People need to start taking to the streets. This is a